Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending Lab Design's Casework and Furniture Digital Conference. My name is Mary Beth Didana, Managing Editor, and I'll be moderating this discussion. Welcome to this session, On-Carpet versus Off-Carpet Spaces, Creating NextGen Labs that Attract and Inspire. Please send us your questions or comments at any point during this webinar by typing them directly into the Q&A box located on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll also have a couple of polls for you during this webinar, so please watch for those. Please check the handouts section on the right side of your screen for supporting material from our sponsors and the form to obtain the AIA credit for this webinar. That's the American Institute of Architects. There's also a link to sign up for updates about the next Lab Design Conference taking place in Orlando, Florida in May 2026. This presentation is being offered for AIA Continuing Education Credit. Please download the form in the handouts section in order to obtain this credit. You need to be an AIA member in order to obtain this credit. I'd like to remind you that the recording of this webinar will be available for free on-demand viewing after the conclusion of this event. I would like to say a special thank you to our sponsors, Formaspace, Kramer, and Durcon. Their support allows Lab Design to offer these digital events free of charge to you, our audience. And now let me introduce our speakers. Jeff Turk is Chairman of Formaspace, Aaron Stoneburner is Creative Director of Formaspace, and Brian Edmonds is CEO of Kramer. Thank you all for joining us. Please begin.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Jeff Turk. I'm the chairman at Formaspace. We're a manufacturer of custom laboratory furniture. And we're excited to explore with you today how lab environments are evolving and what that means for the future of work. Today's topic is NextGen Labs, integrating on-carpet and off-carpet spaces for the future of work. And at Formaspace, this is close to our DNA, helping organizations reimagine their lab and work environments to be more adaptable, collaborative, more connected, and just kind of cooler places to work. Before we dive in, a couple of quick notes. We're going to have about 30 minutes of content today, and then we're going to have time for your questions, which is my favorite part and the part I hope you'll most participate in and that we can answer. So as we're going along, jot down your questions or put them into the little bar on the side. I want to hear your perspectives. I want to hear the questions. Again, my favorite part. So let me start with a little bit of story. Way back in the day when puppies were the oldest animals, in 1999, during the Human Genome Project, Tiger, led by Craig Venter, was an interesting sequencing lab. They were underfunded compared to the multi-billion-dollar government effort. And they pioneered shotgun sequencing. But the only problem was they were 2 years behind the government's research. And so they needed to at least double their sequencing output almost overnight. But they lived inside of a traditional, old school, fixed casework, everywhere laboratory. And as the world came into these more modern sequencers, the first generation of those, they didn't have the time or space to build out new facilities. So what did they do? Well, they ended up turning to us for a more adaptable lab design, and the products were pretty simple. We just engineered some modular, heavy-duty mobile workbenches where they could take these sequencers, roll them down to engineering if they broke, roll them out, clean them, do all the things that they needed to do. And so we just reorganized their space to be a lot more efficient than it was at that time. And we did it in just a few weeks, about 8 weeks. So the decision didn't just save them from a costly redesign of their entire laboratory. It enabled them to catch up those 2 years that they were behind, publish their research the same week as the US government. It made careers, obviously. It changed the course of sequencing forever. It was a pretty cool thing that kept them on pace for one of the most important scientific advances of the 21st century. So the story illustrates something that's critical. The design of lab environments, it can hold you back or it can push you forward, help you leapfrog competitors, help you leapfrog other people who are kind of after the same thing, accelerate you and in whatever way you want to go. So the same principles of adaptability, visibility, efficiency are at the heart of what we now call NextGen Labs. They're not just hidden away in basements anymore. Labs are integrated and up front and center in the workspace where I've always wanted to see them. I'm super excited to see that. And they're labs not just for the equipment, for the people, for the collaboration, for the innovation, for the visibility, for all the good stuff. So take a quick step back. This is your old school lab, from beginning of time until, say, the 1980s or 90s, often located in the basement or some other location far away from headquarters with a rigid fixed casework layout, a focus on the equipment rather than on the people, disconnected, uninspiring, ugly, sometimes unsafe. That's your old school lab. And at the same time, if you consider like the 1980s or even before that, offices were becoming, moving from being closed spaces to open spaces, being more collaborative, and a little bit more human-centered and a little bit more human-centered over time. And that was becoming the norm, while labs just kind of stayed the way they were for, much of the back half of the 20th century. They're kind of, just remember, they're siloed, sterile, whatever. And so that ended up creating a lot of wasted movement, isolation, as people walked between the lab and the office and went through doorways and up and down elevators, and had to leave their stations to get to the places where people do the collaboration that leads their businesses and research forward. That as they started to get more open in laboratories, those detours started to drop. At first by 3 or 4 trips a day, and then more and more, and then fewer elevator trips and less distance and more efficiency, and the kind of stuff that we have time to focus on at our company, because we have a real human-centered approach, down to sometimes the individual worker level of what are they doing and how do we best design furniture to meet their space. So in any way, the takeaway is that isolated, equipment-driven labs no longer serve our modern needs and our modern experience in science or in business. Integration is essential. So quick path, now that I've kind of covered the past a little bit, is today's agenda. So we've set the scene, and now we need to walk through some of today's labs. So we're going to start by defining what's on carpet and what's off carpet space. Then we're going to introduce the inclusive lab concept. Then we're going to outline some key design principles that support it. Then we're going to look at practical strategies and real-world examples. We're going to hear a partner perspective from Brian Edmonds, CEO of Kramer. And then finally, we're going to explore some applications across industries, take a look at some future trends, and close with some time for Q&A. Again, my favorite part. So let's begin by looking at some terminology. When we say on carpet, we're talking about offices, collaborative spaces, hospitality type spaces, the spaces that people are used to in office environments. And when we talk about off carpet, we're talking about stuff that's in the background on this picture. It's the stuff that has the hard, resilient flooring, is a technical or research type environment, and the type of environment that, say, office furniture dealers, for example, normally wouldn't look at. And those two environments historically have had a lot of separation between them, a lot of siloing, a lot of inefficiencies that we just covered, a lot of missed opportunities for collaboration, a lot of fragmented design, and invisible, I guess, in terms of branding, which I think is kind of crazy in my personal opinion. And so that's what we're trying to get rid of in the inclusive lab concept. So the big idea in the inclusive lab concept is, it originated with HOK, but I'd like to think that we've been pushing on it here for decades now too. Is why are those labs? Why is the center of your business or the center of what you're doing, that your future, why would that be hidden away? Why wouldn't that be at the forefront of everything that you're doing? Why? I mean, that's the beating heart of your innovation. That's your future. And when I travel the country and go from lab to lab, I'm like, oh my gosh, these guys are either going to leapfrog their competitors, right? Or they're going to get left behind. And it's going to happen, generally speaking, in their laboratories. And so we're just trying to create, more collaborative and visible spaces that bring the important stuff about each company, university, whatever it might be, up front. So it matters because it saves time, it improves communication, it creates a culture where scientists, engineers, and business teams work together side by side instead of in their silos. And the data backs it way, way up. One recent study that came out showed a 35% reduction in distance walked, which is thousands of miles for that particular company per year, just by relocating those key resources. They cut 30% of their elevator trips. They saved 800 staff hours, they say, annually in just that one company. Another study, it improves task efficiency by like 38%. And job, task switching fell from 38% to 8 or 9%. So just huge reductions in wasted movement. So it's not just about a better layout, and it's not just about looking nicer and have something to show your investors and your big customers and stuff like that. It's also just making it part of your corporate identity that you're future forward. When the science is visible, it attracts the funding, it attracts the collaboration, it strengthens recruitment, it strengthens retention of top talent, because people want to work where they can be seen and where the importance of what they're doing is reflected in that company's brand vision. And where they, of course, feel connected to others instead of isolated. So some key design principles. Now that we've introduced the big idea, the inclusive lab, we're going to look at some of the design principles and sorry, I have something in my throat for a second, and how they come to life in real world projects. So to guide us through that, I'm going to introduce you to Aaron Stoneburner, who is what is your title, Aaron? Director of
Engineering and Design today, but Creative Director.
Creative Director is the new title that we're coming up with for Aaron. He's been leading this stuff for us for about a decade now, I would say, and is one of the most creative people I've ever worked with in my entire life. So really pleased to introduce Aaron.
Thanks for that introduction, Jeff. So let's jump right into what makes an inclusive lab. So first up, we're talking natural light and biophilia. Daylight and plants. Daylight improves morale and reduces fatigue and increases performance. So we're bringing the same well-being and performance standards that have defined the great office design right into the lab. Scientists deserve the same quality of space as the office workers, period. So let's talk about demountable walls, glass walls. They provide safety and space definition without sacrificing transparency. They create a connection between the lab and the office while allowing flexibility for future change. That transparency creates a soft division between your on-carpet world and your off-carpet space. We're blending those two environments into one cohesive experience. It's bringing materials and a familiar design language into the office that's in the office into the lab, and vice versa. When it comes to ergonomics, we're all about human-centered design, as Jeff said. That means height adjustable surfaces and adaptable workspaces that give lab professionals that same comfort we expect in a well-designed office, supporting posture, reducing fatigue, and helping people sustain focus throughout the day. So we're looking at comfort as a performance tool. Next thing we're talking about is adaptability. It's kind of the next big trend, right? And it's been a trend for a while. We're talking about modular reconfigurable systems like our RGX casework. That allows labs to evolve as the science evolves. As research evolves, so should your furniture. RGX casework is our solution to replace fixed casework. It installs quickly, supports utilities, and adapts as projects shift, making change manageable. It's a flexible framework that future-proofs your space, future-proofs the lab. And finally, we're talking about proximity. By placing offices and collaboration zones and labs adjacent to one another, you cut down on that wasted time like Jeff talked about, and you spark spontaneous conversations that drive discovery. It's about designing a neighborhood of spaces that kind of naturally connect. So in short, we're blending light, transparency, ergonomic comfort, modular flexibility, and proximity, and we're putting those all into one cohesive design narrative. It's about creating a lab that feels as thoughtfully designed as maybe your top tier office. So together, these elements are more than just furniture and walls. They're enablers of culture and productivity. So let's take a look at how this plays out in real life. So strategy one, we're talking about transitional furniture. So when you think transitional furniture, think lockers, mobile beds, library style seating at the edge of these lab zones. They create bridges between spaces. And what makes Formaspace unique here is our ability to modify standard and build custom solutions that kind of meet your client's needs. Whether that's mobile storage tailored to a workflow or maybe even a custom collaborative bench. And then we talk about strategy two, collision zones. This is where you're going to find whiteboards, cafe tables, and touchdown spots just outside the lab. So that's where a researcher running out to grab a cup of coffee might run into a project manager or an investor and spark collaboration that can fuel kind of innovation or creativity in the future. Our RGX modular casework is reconfigurable and finish flexible. So it supports the sterile environment inside the lab, and then it flows into those adjacent spaces in like hospitality and corporate interiors environments with warmer finishes, creating consistency across those spaces. Then we talk about consistency and finishes. So labs and offices shouldn't feel like two different worlds. We want to bring those two together. So using aligned materials and colors and finishes to build sort of one unified ecosystem. With in-house design and on-site manufacturing, we can match that on-carpet aesthetic while meeting the off-carpet performance. Examples of that are RGX. So again, sterile finishes on the inside of the lab, warm wood grain just outside the lab. One system in multiple contexts. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Brian at Kramer to share how seating becomes a design principle in these next-gen spaces. Brian, go ahead.
All right. Thanks for the introduction, Aaron. So for those of you who are not familiar with Kramer, we've been designing specialized chairs for technical environments since 1950. And in the last 75 years, Kramer has had to evolve along with these spaces and tasks. But the core requirements for seating in these spaces are still the same today as they were when we first started. Durability, safety, and comfort, these are key considerations for our designs. We do not make office chairs. Those have distinctly different considerations. Technical seating typically serves tasks at higher work surfaces, requires a higher level of cleanability, and it must accommodate more users throughout the day. So in the conversation about NextGen Labs, seating can sometimes get overlooked, but in reality, it's one of the most critical pieces of the environment. Researchers and engineers, they often spend long stretches at their workstations, and without proper support, fatigue, discomfort, and even injury can set in. In high-intensity labs, ergonomic seating is essential to sustaining focus and protecting health. So that's why in human-centered design, comfortable and adaptable seating, it isn't optional. It really is a requirement. And so as these labs are kind of blurring the lines between on-carpet and off-carpet spaces, the seating has to be flexible and adapt with that. So in technical areas, it has to be clean room ready with surfaces that stand up to all of the requirements. And then in the collaborative or the office zones, it needs to be comfortable and still align with the space. So if this adaptability is that allows seating to support the integrative environments that we're talking about. So just to kind of illustrate, it was designed specifically for seamless surfaces, make it easy to clean. It's critical for maintaining compliance and safety in those technical spaces. The Fusion chair, it's an ideal for the technical office environments, and it bridges that on-carpet side with the same high standards of support. And then you bring in the Loop chair. It's versatile, comfortable, and it was really designed for collaboration. So it's a great where the meetings and the quick discussions can happen. Casework. Together, they can create this consistent design language and ergonomic foundation across the lab environment. It's the lab itself, or the office across the way, or in the collaboration zones in between. So that's really where our partnership with Formaspace comes in. Formaspace can deliver the infrastructure, the benches, the casework, the collaborative furniture that shape the space. Kramer delivers the ergonomic complement, seating that adapts to every zone, from clean room to tech labs, from healthcare to collaboration areas. So together we can create a complete ecosystem for these next-gen labs, one that blends functionality, safety, ergonomics, and doesn't sacrifice on the aesthetics. And beyond the product themselves, our companies share many of the same values, such as innovation and adaptability, which is really necessary for creating these environments where researchers thrive. When you put it all together, Formaspace's lab solutions and Kramer seating, you're not just designing space, but you're building this environment that supports both the science and the scientists. So that's why we're so proud to be here today with Formaspace. And with that, I'll hand it back to Jeff so we can look at how these ideas are coming to life across the industries.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, that slide is one of my favorites. It shows our space at the Merchandise Mart in Chicago. So if any of you ever happen to be there, you can come in and see some of these concepts in action. You can see that it's glass all the way around and that we're combining the concepts of laboratory, and most of the rest of that space there in Chicago is more of a hospitality and collaborative type setting. But it's a great illustration of what it is that we're trying to promote today. Okay, so as we move on to the next slide, let's zoom out and see how the principles actually play in across industries. So life sciences, for example, and biotech, the labs aren't tucked away anymore. They're open, they're visible. They're designed to showcase science to investors and partners. That's at least what I like to see when I go into labs. Think about glass walls in the lobby of new biotech headquarters. It's not just a workspace. It's part of the identity of that company and part of something that they're trying to push. And you guys are probably seeing a lot of that too and designing that way too, including in old industries where you wouldn't normally, I'll say a layperson on the street wouldn't normally think of agriculture. But if you walk into some of the world's biggest, ag companies now, boom, the labs are right there. And of course, that part of our lives is being transformed by technology as much as any other. And again, open, designed to showcase science, part of the identity. In pharma and clinical labs, the balance is a little bit different, but same sorts of ideas. Compliance and safety are big things. Security is a big thing, but it still doesn't mean the lab has to feel rigid or isolating. By blending compliance-ready furniture with adjacent kind of collaboration areas, teams can move faster and they don't have to sacrifice their standards. And then in education, teaching labs evolving too. I always like to ask people, if you're a student and you want to come here, look at the lab that you might be working in and just, do you feel like you want to work there? Students don't just need access to the best equipment. They also need spaces that encourage teamwork and prepare them for the future and the workplaces they're going to go to next, which might be those life science or pharma places that we just looked at a minute ago. So inclusive labs on campuses, same sort of concept. They do exactly that. And then industrial R&D, time and efficiency are critical. Prototyping spaces, they work best when directly connected to design studios and offices. That's kind of how we do it here. We co-locate everything in our office. How do we manage an engineer-to-order manufacturing operation where the prototype is the product because everybody's coming to us for something a little bit different? We put the design department right next to manufacturing. It literally has its own door, and we have windows, and open spaces in between. And so that's what we look for there. They work best when they can just kind of move very back and forth, test quickly. Sometimes we're dragging stuff from the factory, into effectively a lab or design area, and back and forth, we're testing it. so that we can optimize for our clients. And we hope our clients are doing the same kinds of things in their types of environments. So modular benches, integrated power, data, durable storage, a lot of flexibility in the design of these products so that they're exactly where they're needed, when they're needed, they're future forward. You can reconfigure the entire thing in a matter of hours if you want to, days if you need to, if it's, say, an entire facility, to reduce downtime and ensure consistency and what they're trying to do. Some of our labs are retasking at literally every few weeks. We have a big computer company up the street from here. All their labs are designed, the furniture in their labs, I would say, is designed by us. And they're retasking so frequently that they need to be able to retask and reconfigure those benches in a matter of minutes or hours instead of days involving facilities, weeks. And they're putting more visibility into place. So looking forward to future trends. Before we look forward, we have to pause on a point. Not all labs are science labs. Companies Apple, Google, Nike operate labs for design, prototyping, testing, drive innovation. Schools and university run labs of all types too. Teaching spaces, maker spaces. What unites all of them is the need to adapt quickly to new tools, processes, and people. So where does it all lead? NextGen Labs. They're not just about today, they're about the future of work. So we see modularity and reconfigurability as the foundation of that, and everything that we design is designed around that. Things where you don't need a construction crew or your facilities team to reconfigure the space, where it's kind of user reconfigurable. So some examples of that in terms of our products include our FLX benches, which allow data, power, and other services to come from above. Pretty common concept that you see today across companies. And we have a product that you don't see at a lot of other companies called RGX, which acts just like traditional fixed casework, but it doesn't require a construction crew. It sits on levelers, it has little kick-out plates at the bottom. You can quickly pull it out from the wall. You can depreciate it on a faster cycle. And you can put different fronts and faces and handles and things like that on it. So if it was in a hospitality or collaboration or conference room type space last week, you can roll it into the lab and retask it the next week or vice versa. It's kind of an amazing product. We won a lot of awards for it. But that's kind of the idea of what we do is how can we make it future forward, fast, flexible. You can depreciate it fast if you care about finance, those kinds of things. As Aaron also indicated earlier, we're seeing a lot of interest in biophilic design, sustainability, wellness. So labs aren't just technical spaces around the equipment anymore. They're workplaces where people spend a lot of hours. And so we're bringing in natural light, greenery, sustainable materials, branded materials that reflect, some of our big universities here in Texas. We've made some maroon benches and we've made some burnt orange benches and some of those other colors too. So all those kind of nice to haves and branding elements, we're bringing that into the picture as well, which makes people feel like they belong. And of course, the technology integration too. So a lot of IoT enablement that we're putting into our furniture now. Sensors for environmental control, turn lights on, off, change temperatures, those kinds of things, and focusing on AI-ready layouts so we can accommodate robotics, automated workflows, rapidly changing workflows. Somebody puts into their AI tool, how can I make this lab more efficient? And then they try that out. So the smart lab isn't part of a distant future. It's here like right now today. So I think we finished that pretty quick. I've got 1:29 on my calendar, including the 2 or 3 minute intro. So I think we're just a couple minutes ahead of time. We've covered a lot from the story of DNA discovery some decades ago and our little role in that to the design principles of inclusive labs, integration strategies, future of work in science, the fact that I tell people here all the time that we live in the age of speed. And so that age of speed, age of flexibility, Now it's time to hear from you guys. I'd love to hear about challenges you're facing, questions that you have for us, opportunities that you see in front of you. How can we bring people closer to their science? And yeah, so let's do a little Q&A, and then I'll wrap it up right at the end. And thanks for sticking with us for this long.
All right, great. Thank you, team. So we are about ready to move into our Q&A session with the audience, but first, a few quick housekeeping notes. A reminder to please type your questions or comments for our speakers directly into the Q&A box on the right side of your screen. If you don't have a question, but you want our speakers to get in touch with you, if you put your comment in that Q&A box, we'll make sure to forward that to them to get back to you. Our speakers have also very kindly provided their contact information on the screen in front of you now, so you can contact them offline with any questions, or if we don't have time to get to your question today. A reminder to please see the handout section on the right side of your screen to download supporting materials for this session. You can also download the AIA form that you can send back to us once you've completed this webinar. If you want the American Institute of Architect credit for this webinar, if you just need a certificate, that will be automatically mailed to you after this webinar concludes. In the handout section, you'll also find a link to get more information about the Next Lab Design Conference taking place in Orlando, Florida in May 2026. So we hope to see you there. Thanks again to our speakers. Let's jump right into the question at the top of your list. If a company doesn't have the budget for a major renovation, what are some simple ways to make their labs feel more open and connected?
Aaron, you want to take that, or you want me to take it?
Sure, I can take that. So I think you don't have to necessarily start with a ground-up renovation to make that happen. It's small changes make a difference in your labs. So, maybe that's demountable walls. Investing in demountable walls up front allows you to have the flexibility later to modify that lab. So, you don't have a budget. I guess I'd focus on flexibility and adaptive lab components. Swapping out height adjustable tables, your height adjustable stations for fixed stations. That's a way to bring ergonomics, and it's really not a significant cost, but it again, you're future-proof, doing what is required to attract and retain talent.
Yeah, I think lighting too. I mean, that's an easy change.
Lighting, upgrading your finishes, and things like that.
Inexpensive. Right? Like just bringing it a little closer to the collaboration with maybe some more glass, some different lighting, a little different branding element, maybe a different surface. Yeah. What's our next question?
All right, great. Thank you. Let's jump around a little bit, just to make sure we get a good variety of questions. Let's go to number 7 on your list. How do you address EH&S concerns for collaboration spaces and labs that may invite users to bring their beverages? Any thoughts?
Interpreting EH&S to be environment, health, and safety.
Safety, yeah.
And I think, it's since the pandemic, I think it's everybody here at Formaspace anyway. We design spaces that are highly cleanable, right? We want sterile, very, very cleanable surfaces. So we take that philosophy and carry that through all of our furniture design. So I think it's about cleanability and making those collaboration spaces, functional but cleanable.
Yeah, I mean, there are some spaces where I hope people wouldn't bring their soda into.
Sure,
that we filled out, but in others it's fine. If somebody comes in and they spill their huge monster 7-Eleven soda, we try to make our fixed casework, for example, or our RGX, all the panels pop right out, so it's easy to clean. I don't know if we're getting to the heart of that question, though. I guess the person who typed it in would have to tell us if we've answered the question.
Yeah.
To that viewer, I'm going to invite you, if you have any follow-up information about that question, just type in the Q&A box, or you can contact our speakers directly, or we can just pass your contact info on to them and they can reach out to you. In the meantime, we'll move on. If we get an update from you, maybe we'll revisit this question. But let's
Sounds
go
like
back
my
to
teenage daughter must work in whoever's environment.
Well, and we have a lot of furniture, in electronics labs. where everybody's going to bring their drink to their desk, right? So we'll put cup holders that are below the surface and things like that, just giving them a place to put that beverage.
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. Thank you. Let's go to the top of your list. This question says, do you see inclusive lab design being applied differently in academic labs compared to corporate R&D environments?
I'll go ahead and take that one. Yes, they are applied differently. There are so many different types of environments that we find ourselves in, and they have all kinds of differences, from frequency of retasking requirements to the technical requirements themselves. But the goal is the same, right? They're still humans, no matter how technical or what BSL level you might be at. There's still people that are working in there. And so making it more human-centric, I think, is super important. So an academic lab, it's going to emphasize visibility and collaboration because they're trying to recruit students to come in and work there and study there. And they want to learn cross-discipline. And a student joins, they're like, well, maybe I was interested in this, but maybe I want to try out some of that. And they should, right? And so whereas a corporate R&D, a little more focused, a little more about efficiency, speed, leapfrogging a competitor, removing interdisciplinary barriers where people have by then gotten a little bit siloed and you want to break them back out of that silo. An undergraduate science student probably wants to experiment with everything. Whereas if you've got your postdoctoral, you got this postdoc and they're interested in this one thing. Well, now I've got the opposite issue, right? I need to bring that person back out and have them talk to somebody in a completely unrelated field that makes them think in a different way. But it's still the same basic principle: visibility, adjacency, integration, just kind of human-centered closeness. And so the same ideas help achieve those goals, just slightly different emphasis. And some things might have a lock on the door.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. Let's go to the next question under that. This one says, you mentioned ergonomics as essential in NextGen Labs. In practice, how does Kramer design chairs for lab environments differently than standard office seating while still keeping them ergonomic?
Yeah, so, the big part of this is the use of what we call lab grade materials. So in labs, chairs, they not only have to be cleanable, but they have to withstand being cleaned every day. So no mesh, no fabric, but the comfort surfaces still need to be soft and comfortable. So that's really the tricky point sometimes. Also, they're used different in labs. There's typically multiple people using the chair throughout the day as opposed to one assigned to a chair. So we use heavy duty cylinders. The chassis are very durable. It takes a different level of use when you're at higher heights and more people are climbing in and out, than just standard height, one person using it. It's just a different thing. And then the adaptability to different work surface heights. Usually, again, you're at higher heights in labs, or you can be. There's more variable height stations present, so to be able to bridge the gap with one chair to go from a desk height up to a counter height. And then typically the postures are more forward and advanced in lab tasks as opposed to general office tasks. So to be able to support that properly with the right mechanism, the right adjustments, and so forth. And they need to be pretty intuitive on how to use, how to be able to use it. If you've got multiple people using it throughout the day, it cannot be something that's very complicated for one person to dial in. It really needs to be intuitive and easy for somebody to climb in and do their thing.
All right, great, thank you. We have a follow-up from the person who asked about beverages. They said, regarding EH&S concerns, consumables, which are common in meeting rooms, are prohibited in labs. So that's the additional context they provided. I don't know if that changes your answer at all.
I don't know that it changes the answer much, but I will go back to kind of some of the things we talked about during this presentation, which are those collaboration zones or those collision zones that are right outside the lab. So it makes those spaces a little more important because you're right. In this case, those consumables and things are not, they're prohibited in labs, right? So you need to have those adjacent spaces where the lab employees can actually enjoy a beverage, right? Go out and have a collaborative session with some of their coworkers in a space that it's safe to have those items and those elements.
Yeah, definitely gets back to what I said before about some of these labs. I certainly hope there's no soda in them, but other labs, it's totally free for all open, right? Like a maker space, there's a lot of stuff that people don't even necessarily consider a lab that's, kind of well within our operating envelope. Yeah. So just depends on what kind of lab you have. It's a great point, Erin.
Okay, all right, great. Thank you all. I think we have time for maybe a couple more questions. This one says, you mentioned a modular alternative product. Why would someone choose that over traditional casework?
You want that, Erin, or you want me to take it?
Yeah, well, I'll take it. So yeah, it's about this adaptive lab, right? It's about it being adaptive. The old, traditional fixed casework around the perimeter of your lab, that's kind of going away. That trend is that's kind of over. And now the new trend is to have adaptable, flexible furniture that can evolve as a lab evolves, as the research evolves. So I think it just makes sense in future-proofing your lab spaces to make them adaptive and modular.
Yeah, we have a couple of clients that are basically like we work for laboratories and pharma, and they've standardized on our product. I think in part, even though it's the lessee that lives in the space, well, maybe that lessee's funding runs out and they still have that furniture, and maybe they can extract some of that funding. They can just move it to the next lab over, or they can retask it and reuse it very easily. And that's why they chose us. So something like the RGX product or FLX or our standard, what we call 5.0 product, it all fits in those spaces really, really well, where there's rapid retasking, and a startup might make it, might not. Might start with one bench and go to, I think we had a project that went from one bench to 8 floors overnight almost. And so, yeah, that hopefully gets to why they'd want that. And then, of course, as well, if you're in a leased space, wouldn't it be nice to take it with you? Wouldn't it be nice if you didn't feel tied to renew your lease? I'm speaking from personal experience here. Sometimes it's nice to be able to do that too.
There's some other benefits to modular furniture over fixed furniture, and that's the depreciation. From a financial standpoint, getting that shorter depreciation period, that's pretty important.
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. Thank you. I think we have time for one more question, so let's take this one. When labs are being planned, what's one detail you think often gets overlooked?
I think it's that modularity and adaptability.
I'd say the ergonomics and the need of the particular user, which is something that we can get to and do for free for people. So, Erin, you want to say expand on your piece, and I'll expand on mine?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of what I've harped on a little bit here is that adaptive lab. Future-proofing it and being ready for what's next, being ready for where the organization is going to take you next. I think that oftentimes gets overlooked, and we fall back into, what we grab for what we have traditionally gone for. And that is traditional fixed casework in most cases in the lab,
Yeah, for me, often, if you have a new construction project, it might be, many floors, and there's just not enough time and budget for the architects to consider the individual user needs. Because Joe might be doing one thing and Mary, who sits next to him, might be doing something else. And so as part of the programming, that's just something that I like to be able to do, is see what the needs of different users are and make sure that we've planned for the little things you wouldn't think of at an architecture or interior architect kind of level. And it could be something that turns out to be fairly fundamental in some cases, like they didn't think about the need for e-power, or they didn't think about the fact that a NEMA receptacle They might not be operating on the American electrical system. They might need something different there. Those things have all come up. If you can imagine it, it's arisen for us, where thinking about it from kind of the overall envelope of a building perspective didn't meet the user's ergonomic or actual specific workplace needs, that we do that for free. So if that was our final question, as we wrap up, I just want to leave you with a thought. Science moves at the speed of ideas, and the spaces we create should match the pace. I tell people at Formaspace, they get sick of hearing it every single day, that we live in an age of speed. Speed. How fast can we make that happen? Don't make it perfect, break it, just try it, move it fast, especially in an age where right now, like, I'm super focused on AI, and things that you couldn't do 3 weeks ago in AI are now possible. That's a literal thing that's just happened in the past few weeks. It's going to change the nature of work. So our furniture and our interior environments, they need to be able to move at that pace of change too. So at Formaspace, along with partners like Kramer, who we value super highly, we're here to help you design labs that don't just meet the needs for today, but anticipate the opportunities of tomorrow. Thanks for joining us. Let's keep the conversation going. You've got all of our contact information. You can screenshot it or send me an email, or doesn't have my email. I don't have my phone number, but I was going to say you could text me. Phone calls, but text messages and emails are great. So you can also contact or connect with both of us on LinkedIn. That's a great way to do it. So anyway, look forward to your future questions, your projects, your thoughts, your arguments, and thank you for joining us today.
All right. Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. So this does bring us to the end of this webinar. A reminder that this presentation has been offered for AIA Continuing Education Credit. One more reminder to please see the handout section before we close to get the form to obtain this credit. Also, another reminder that the handout section has information about our 2026 Lab Design Conference in Orlando, Florida in May. Be sure to sign up to receive the latest updates. If you didn't download our handouts from our sponsors yet, please be sure to do that before we finish. All of the presentations from Lab Design's Casework and Furniture Digital Conference will soon be available for free on-demand viewing. Please watch your email for a message from Lab Design once these videos become available. On behalf of Lab Design, I'd like to thank Jeff Turk, Aaron Stoneburner, and Brian Edmonds for their participation in this event, and thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us. A special thank you to our sponsors, Formaspace, Kramer, and Durcon. Their support allows Lab Design to offer these digital events free of charge to you, our audience. For more information on all of our upcoming on-demand webinars, or to learn more about the design, construction, renovation, and optimization of laboratory facilities, please visit our website at labdesignnews.com. Thank you all for being part of Lab Design's Casework and Furniture Digital Conference, and we hope you have a great day.